talking with Tony Davis. Tony's a man that is highly involved in schools and athletics in our state. I've gotten a chance to get to know him over the years, especially at Seahawks Academy and so forth, and highly respected, wise input that he gives to all kinds of things. He's the athletic director and the head football coach at Tahoma High School. Played football years ago at Mizzouri. You can see behind his head there. He's still repping the team right there. So
there we go.
Played tight end for them, and went briefly with the Seahawks. And he's been giving back to people in our state for many years. Kind of interesting little note. Your first football job, head coaching job, was at Renton, correct?
Yep.
And 1991, I read up on this morning. And do you remember who was the head coach right before you?
Mark Stewart.
There we go. And Mark and I, he's actually tomorrow's conversation, but I'm traveling tomorrow. I'm flying to the East Coast. So I'm traveling all day. So we actually interviewed last night, and but I'll post it tomorrow. So pretty cool little connection there, So
it's a small world for one thing.
Yeah.
And when I first met Mark, when I was first saw the opening, he was going to take the position up at Western Washington, back when Western had football.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to learn about the school and all those other things. We've been friends ever since. You're going on 30 years. Again, it ages me when we talk about that, but he's a good man. He's a real good man. Very, it's just another one of those guys. We all have those guys that when you're struggling with something, you want to pick up the phone and reach out and talk to. And Mark is one of those guys for me, and I hope I can do the same for him.
Awesome. So what my intent is to really, for the most part, give you the floor and give you a chance to share a little bit of your story, maybe some of your background and what you have dealt with when it comes specifically to racism and racial relations and how that's impacted you. I think it can be really easy for especially the white community that doesn't see the little stuff. They just see the big stuff, just to not even know it's going on. And then maybe they hear a story here or there, oh, that happened, but they think it's isolated, and they don't realize that it could be the plight for many people, and so I'd like to hear your story, and then after you share, I'll ask you a few questions, but really I'd like the floor to be yours. So
well, I guess I'm not sure. So just background wise, like you said, I went to Mizzou, went to high school in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We moved a whole bunch between the 6th grade and the 10th grade, and we ended up in Colorado Springs. There's actually a public high school on the United States Air Force Academy, and we lived on what would be the north end of Colorado Springs. My folks weren't military at all. It turned out to be a blessing. It was a phenomenal high school, and athletic opportunity as well. My high school coach was a guy named Gary Barnett. I don't know if that name rings a bell for you. He was at Northwestern, took Northwestern to the Rose Bowl, and coached Colorado. And I laugh is, when I was in high school, if you sprained your ankle, you'd go up to the Air Force Academy trainer, whose kids I went to school with, and we get into the playoffs, and we're practicing in the Air Force Academy field house. So I start over at Renton High School coaching, and I'm looking for the trainer. I'm looking for the field house, and it was not quite the same setup as we have over there. The working backwards from there, from 6th grade to 10th grade, we moved, I want to say 4 or 5 times, different reasons for the moves in different parts of the country, from California, Southern California, to upstate New York, back to California, back to New York, then just area just outside of Boston, and then from Boston to Colorado. And so those moves at that age shape you as a young person. And went from schools that were mostly white kids, and then when we were in Massachusetts, in a suburb of Boston in the mid 70s, I don't know if you remember, but I was busing. And so we lived in the community. My dad was an electrical engineer, one of the few Black engineers at the time. And so we were fortunate to live in the community. And then we had kids that were bused from Roxbury, Boston, and the city to the school that I was at. So it was kind of a weird situation being a Black kid, but you live in the town. And so are you part of the group that lives in the town, or do you connect with the kids that look like you that are being bused in? And sports builds a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a perfect bridge. And sometimes if you look in locker rooms, you can see levels of segregation within locker rooms as well. And I think you have to be, one of the lessons that I think I've learned in all those moves is that you have to be intentional about creating truly, everybody uses the word family. And that's one of our core values.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell our kids, you're going to hear everybody talking about it, but what are we doing to make sure that is more than words, that it has actions to it, not just words. So in terms of mixing groups together, those kind of things. And again, I'm not sure that I would have been as aware of that type of thing if I hadn't lived in some of the different places that we lived. Went to college at Missouri, University of Missouri, and somewhat of a culture shock. I never lived in the South. My parents are from the South. Missouri is, it's not in the South, but they're Southern attitudes. Mm-hmm. And so again, the sports piece builds a bridge. So it put, for me personally, in a position to have friends of the white friends and Black teammates were teammates to me. We were raised to not necessarily see color, but we're definitely aware of the fact that there's folks that look different than other folks, and some are getting treated differently than others. That one of the things that I give my parents credit for is they're a no excuse belief. Mm-hmm. And if we were to come home and say, well, I'm not getting this opportunity because of this, then their whole thing would be, then you just have to work harder, and you have to be so much better at that thing, whatever it is, that they don't have any choice but to give you that opportunity. Mm. So that was the mindset. And I'm not sure that's always the best mindset, because it allows you to kind of tolerate things, but it was the one that helped them have the levels of success that they had. So like I said, here's a man who's an electrical engineer, born in the mid 30s. When he told his friends and his family that he wanted to go to college, they told him he was crazy. Ended up graduating from high school when he was 16 years old, went to all-Black college, Tennessee State. That's where he met my mom. And I'll talk about her story in a second. And again, just driven. His education was such an important piece to both of them. I would imagine that's probably the connection that they had with each other. My mother, she was from a much more poor background. I don't know if you're a social studies teacher, I can't remember or not, but there's a place called Warm Springs, Georgia. It's the place where Franklin Roosevelt actually passed away. He used to go down to these warm springs because of the polio that he had. And so that's the place, that's the town that I started to say city, but it's by no means is it a city. It's the town that my mom was born in and was raised. And so the Roosevelts had ties to this community. And she has just amazing stories. She's getting up there. She's having some challenges with dementia and Alzheimer's. And a couple years ago, I just kind of put the phone down and just started asking her questions and having her tell stories. And it's just amazing. I shared them with my daughter, and I want her to be able to share those with her daughter, which would be my mom's great granddaughter. And some of those, like Mrs. Roosevelt, she saw what was going on in the Warm Springs area. So she had a school built, and the school was supposed to be built for Black kids. Well, they saw this new school being built, and when it was done, the white families were like, "No, we're taking this one." Mm. But one of the things, and I hear all these legendary tales of respect that Black folks have for the Roosevelts. Well, when she found out about that, she said, "No, this school was built for this group, and that's who's going to be in it." So she switched things back around.
Awesome.
She tells a story about, and it kind of gives you a sense of who she is. Well, for Black students, so this would be like late 30s, early 40s. School ended in the 8th grade. And so for her, she had to take what literally the Greyhound bus. So she took babysitting jobs to take the Greyhound bus to go to the next city over, because like she was telling me that when I was home a couple of weeks ago, and she said, I wanted to live like those folks live. And I knew that I had to get an education to do that. So she would take this money that she would make babysitting and use that for her bus trips, literally getting herself to, spending her own money to get on a bus to go to the next city over as she graduated from high school.
Wow.
Had just a tremendous amount of help from the people whose families that she was taking care of. They saw something in her and helped her put money away to be able to go to school. Like I said, that's where her and my dad's paths crossed. And sometime later down the road, when I came along, my brothers and me came along. But so their experiences growing up are those news clips that we see.
Yeah.
My dad's from Birmingham, and he passed away in 2001. But for him to tell the stories, the 4 Black girls that were killed when the church was blown up, they just went to church on Sunday, and it cost them their lives, and not because of anything other than they looked different than the people who did this. And so that obviously, because it shaped them, and it shapes I have an older brother and a younger brother, and we're definitely impacted by their experiences. And that focus, laser beam focus. Kids will laugh if they watch this because I use that phrase all the time, on the value of education, and what education can do, and how it can sort of level the playing field. But I hadn't planned on going here, but part of my dad's experiences were, as an engineer, he would get these jobs, IBM, digital, just larger computer companies in the 60s all the way up through the 70s. But he was always getting bypassed for positions. And it took a toll on him, to be honest with you. There would be people that he would actually be training, and then he'd come back in and, next week or whatever, and this person's got a promotion, and now promotion. So for him, it wasn't just about ability. There was this other thing involved in the futility that came with knowing that I can do this better and I have more experience. In fact, I'm the one that taught this person how to do it, but they're taking advantage of these opportunities. And then, I couple that with some of the stories my mom tells me about her own existence and her path. And when her and my dad split up and she had to go back, she's a teacher, she's a kindergarten teacher. She retired when she was 70 years old.
Wow.
And so, but she had to get back into it. And so persistence. So actually she went to the district office and she sat said, I'd like to speak to the superintendent. Well, you can imagine. So he's like, well, no, he's not available. Mm-hmm. So she's just sat there the whole day. I'll just wait till he's available. And the day comes, no meeting. Comes back the next day, same thing. Comes back the next day, same thing. And finally they said, we're going to have to put these two together because he's not going anywhere. And then I finally put her in a classroom and started off as a sub and then taking a job from there. So I share these stories with our kids all the time as well. But there will be obstacles, and racism has obstacles built into it. The challenge is how you're going to respond. There's a system that needs to be changed, and it feels more so than it ever has, at least as far as I can remember, that there are things that are in place that are beginning to change it. But if you're starting off 2 steps behind, if not more, then the work to equalize is even greater. And so that persistence that I was just talking about becomes important. The understanding the value of education becomes more important. It's not, those 2 things in and of themselves aren't going to solve it. but you're gonna have to dig down and find ways, and then surround yourself with people who feel the same ways, that that can help you and support you, white, black, green, whatever. And that's one of the things that I probably more so on my mom's side than dad's side, is that the number of folks who stepped up and saw the kind of person that she was, and helped her. Well, kind of ramble a little bit, but I think it was her junior year of college, the place where she lived, and she still was babysitting and doing the housework for one of these families, and the place burned down. And so the family knew how important, there was a doctor in Nashville, knew how important finishing school was for her. So they paid to get her new clothes, get her stuff to get back to school, to stay with it. So, and I think that's probably one of the lessons that my brothers and I take away, is that there's good people, regardless of what color skin they have, and there's knuckleheads. I was going to use a different word, but I hit my own filter button. And that's regardless of what color they are. I have some folks whose skin looks like mine, who have burned me, taken advantage of me. But I also have more who have been great support. And so I think that's part of the legacy for both of my folks, is learning that it's about the person. It's not about the way that they look. It's about the person. I was kind of, I don't know if that was giving you what you were looking for, but
it's awesome. I love hearing the personal stories and connections, and I think that, as I plan to do this for 30 days straight, all of these stories are going to add up, and for anybody, I know it's going to impact me tremendously. It already has. And for people who listen to just hear over and over, oh, that was similar to so and so, and this is maybe a way bigger than I thought it was, right? So it was awesome, great. I could have listened to you for another half hour just on rambling, so that was awesome. So some questions I have for you. So that's a lot about mom and dad and the legacy that they grew up with, and where they were coming from. So you said a little culture shock when you went to Missouri, and then as an adult, you know, are there things that you personally have seen and faced? And then maybe as a parent, what are your concerns for your own children, or for the kids that go through your schools? Maybe take a look at that. And what advice might you give?
Well, you know, we were doing Zoom meetings with our football kids, and it's probably been about a month now after George Floyd murder. And we were gonna, you know, we were putting some plays in, installing, and it just felt like, yeah, there's a bigger thing that needs to be discussed right now. And I don't know how well you know our school. We were a predominantly white school. What's kind of ironic is we probably have as many black coaches on our coaching staff as we do players on our team. And we just spent the hour. I was trying to get this with the senior leaders. Sorry. And it actually I caught myself just getting emotional, because I was trying. I think, Dan, to be honest with you, in my own mind, I was just trying to make sense of what was going on. Okay. But like you, we've had players that have graduated our program who've gone on to become policemen. We have a coach who's a state patrolman. One of the assistant principals here, I work with the math department. I have people that I work with whose spouses are policemen and policewomen. But something is wrong. Something is wrong with what's going on, and I just in my own mind, and I still don't know that I can make sense of it all. I think it goes back to what I was saying before. There's good folks and there's bad folks, and how much the color comes into play, I'm sure it depends on the situation as well. But what I was trying to get the kids to understand, and there was all white kids on the screen that day, is that my path is different than what your path is. And like the examples I gave them were similar to the question that you're asking. There's a conversation that I had to have with my son when he first started driving, that I know that none of their mothers or fathers had to have with them when they first started driving. Shared with them the times where, I've been pulled over and then I don't drive all that fast to begin with. The kids make fun of me all the time. But again, pulled over, even as it's been a while, but as someone in their mid 40s, early 50s. And you just kind of go, what the heck? And then I shared with them a story that we were doing supervision coming back from prom. And I shouldn't say who I was driving with, but the other person was driving and we got pulled over. And I didn't think we were speeding, but obviously we were. And it was one of my white coworkers. And I'm listening to the way that he's talking to this policeman. And I'm just astounded. And I will tell you, I told the kids that if I spoke to them that same way, at the very least I would have gotten a ticket. And maybe even worse. He was just total smart ass as he's talking to him. And I'm sitting there, hands up, right? See, and I'm the passenger in the car. And again, and I actually shared the conversation again because I told him about it later that evening, and we've talked about it a couple times since. We had an incident here at school where someone found a video. Someone posted a video, and the video was actually a couple months old, and they were using the N-word on it. And so our students of color, just sideways, our community, again, primarily white community, but what are we going to do? And so we created this forum probably a little over a month ago. Our superintendent, I thought, did a great job of bringing folks together and just talk about what your experience has been in our schools. And I had heard a lot of those stories already because in the assistant principal's role, kids and parents would sometimes share those things. But from elementary through high school, the things that are said to kids, the way that they're treated, and so with the idea being, what do we need to do to make the situation better? And so the person that I was just describing was part of that call as well. He's in a leadership position in our district, and our former superintendent, he says, change doesn't happen if it's just here. It has to come from here. And probably for the first time, I felt this change from here. It wasn't at an intellectual level, it was at an emotional level that, yeah, this is the circumstance situation that I shared with Tony, but here's the stories that our kids are talking about. And it just, again, it just reinforced that this is not the place that we want for our kids. We want it to be a great experience for all of our kids, not just a certain group of kids who look a certain way, and really lit a fire about what we're going to do about those things. And I go through all that because one of the things I think that made a big difference to him was, I said, Terry, there's a conversation that I had to have with Aaron, because he knows my son, that you'll never have to have with your kids. And I don't think I think I've shared that with him, but I think the circumstances, the forum with the kids and the other stuff that's been going on and dealing with, the angry folks about the video that's out there. And then there's this other faction that says, well, it's none of your business. Why is the school even getting involved? And his role with being involved with it. I think just at that place where he could hear it, but more importantly, feel it. And time will tell what happens from this point. But I feel confident that we'll be moving forward in a way that we're doing things to change the culture and the experience for that group of kids. Biggest part is just feeling like nobody's got them. They go to a teacher and say, this kid just called me this, or this kid just said this about, and nobody, the teacher didn't do anything. Right. don't want to get political, but things shifted dramatically 4 years ago, and the new president came in. And we have examples where literally the day after the election, there was a group of kids that felt empowered to behave a certain way. And you know, when your leadership empowers a voice that's about division rather than unity, then it emboldens them. And so you're kind of fighting that a little bit as well. But we have a pretty good group that's ready to battle for all our kids as well.
Yeah. I'm fairly conservative myself, you know, talking politically and so forth. But talk to me about just the phrase MAGA, Make America Great Again. You know, I know there was people that got upset, and then people, why would you be upset about this? And so, you know, there's a whole section of people in our country, whether it's Native American, African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, that when they look at the past, it hasn't been all that great, right? And so when you reference back to, okay, Make America Great Again, what time period was that? Is that just kind of a tone deaf statement, do you think, or is it divisive? I don't know. It's just it's an interesting topic.
Well, I think we are all a result of the experiences that we have. And so if life's been good, if life's been great, it's easy to throw that hat on or that t-shirt on. But 20 minutes ago, I talked about 4 kids being killed in a church. In a church. That's not great. There's nothing great about that. So when I see that, speak for myself, I'm not representing Tahoma High School, I'm for Tony Davis right now. When I hear people talking about make America great again, I want you to help me understand when was it great? And I'm blessed to be from the United States of America. I know that there are opportunities, the job that I have, people that I work with, all those other things, but also know that this isn't perfect. And what feels different about this experience that we're having right now is that there's this momentum to get better, to treat people better, to be respectful. You know, it's such a grace.
Yeah.
Grace is an incredibly powerful word.
Yeah.
And part of grace comes from listening. You know, and it feels to me like people are listening more. Not everybody. Not everybody. But it feels like people are listening more and understanding. And maybe it was the power of having on video, even though it's not the first time. I don't know what's different about this period that we're in, but it feels different. You know, you're doing this. It obviously feels different to you.
It does.
And that's exciting. That meeting I was talking about when we had the seniors on, I said, man, we've screwed this thing up. So my challenge to you as leaders in this school, and you're going to leave this school in a year and be leaders in the community, in the state, in the country, is do better.
Yeah.
That's part of why I want you to understand that there's experiences that you don't know anything about, and have empathy for them. And so that when you're listening and when you're sitting there in a room and people are talking a certain way, that you can say, no, this is not the way it is. And be able to give them examples and be able to tell them. That was a little bit, I got off track from the Make America Great piece, but you know,
I think
my parents would struggle with great. I overcame.
Right.
And so if you want to label the challenges that I have overcome as great, they're probably a better word. You know, and but I don't know, offensive is probably too strong a word, but I struggle with it.
Yeah.
I struggle with it.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned something that I thought was really good. I think we get people just to choose, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go over here. And I've got to firmly believe this or that, and I've got to choose sides. And you made it clear that, look at I'm blessed. I've got a great job. I think America's a great place to be. We can live in what we think is still the best country on earth that has visions of improving and being better, and say that there's a big part of our history that has not been great, and where we have not lived up to the ideals of, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. But from the moment that we wrote that, we had decades and decades of not living up to that, right? And so I think you can still say, I love America. It's a great place to be, but we've fallen short and we need to improve ourselves. So.
And again, I think it's that recognition that the path wasn't the same for everybody, and that there's a groups, not just Black Americans, but Native Americans and Asian internment. And how far do you want to go in this thing?
Yeah.
You know, but with all of that, you know, the white folks have been in control. Very seldom have they been in the position of having to fight to get things as a group. I want to be careful how I word that, because anybody who has success, especially at a high level, has had to fight to have that success. Now, you know, inheritance and some of those other things get handed to them, but somebody set the table for that. Whether it's the Rockefellers with the oil industry, or the Carnegies with steel, and you know, they had to fight. But they were in a better position to fight for some of those opportunities than others were. And what it feels like is we're having a better understanding and a recognition of that. And then what are we going to do about it? Because that's really, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. One thing to recognize something, but what are we going to do about it? And there hasn't been a time in my life where the energy to change in a positive direction has been as high as it is right now. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's got to be moving forward.
You asked the question, what are we going to do about it? What are some ideas that you have that you would like to see happen, whether it's from just regular people, educators, legislators? What are some ideas that you have?
You know, I think it starts with the simple things. You know, we talked about grace a little bit ago. We talked about listening a little bit ago. We didn't talk about, but there's that understanding that I don't have to agree with you and I don't have to agree 100% on things. But I need to be willing to listen, and you need to be willing to listen to me and understand. It might come a point where we agree to disagree. But if I understand you more, if I understand your story more, if you understand my story more, you'll understand why I'm doing the things that I do, or say the things that I do, and we can move forward together at that point. In my role at this school that is predominantly white, that opportunity for just interaction. You know, that's one of the things that maybe that's how I convince myself this is the right place for me to be. I also think that our Black students, the non-white students, need a face that they feel comfortable and they can come to. You know, it's been interesting sometimes in discipline situations, especially if they involve race. There'll be a group that feels like I was too hard, and there'll be a group that will say that I'm not hard enough. And in a certain situation, that's how you know you probably did okay, when you got both sides that are not happy, right? But we're in this is a little bit of a pivot. We're in a profession, you and I, where we need more teachers of color. And so as a Black community, we need to be talking more positively about education so that it becomes a route that more kids want to take, so that the pool is bigger to choose from. And we're making a concerted effort to find more non-white teachers. The pool's not very big. And so, so what are you going to do about it? And you need to go to places to and talk with our players about the value, because all they hear teachers, oh, teachers don't make any money, teacher sucks. They see how teachers get treated sometimes in their classrooms. But we need to enlighten them to the positive things that are involved with this, both Black kids and white kids, but especially some of our Black kids. And my own son, again, twisting his arm, that it needs to be his idea, not mine.
Yeah.
Right. But he'd be a fantastic teacher. So there's that presence, one, grace, and that listening and the empathy that comes from listening, not hearing, not just nodding and then going on and doing the things you were going to go do anything, but listening, being actively listening to see, to seek to understand, as corny as that sounds. I've been sitting in too many of these admin meetings, right? But there's some truth to that. And again, I would argue that that's the visual of someone's knee on someone's neck, taking their life from them, and him saying, I can't breathe, and then calling for his mom.
Yeah.
Okay. That has power. That hits here. It's not about here right now. If you read about it in the Seattle Times, it might register here. Well, that sucks. That's not very good. But we all saw that. And why that one's different, because we've seen some other ones, but why that one's different, I'm not entirely sure. But it's created a thing here for a lot of people that needed to feel that difference to move things forward in the direction that feels like we're headed right now.
Yeah. One last thing, and then if there's anything extra that you want to throw out there, feel free. What gives you the most hope for the future?
Oh, it's the young people that I get to work with. You know, they're just, you know, it's a much more multicultural world in 2020 than it was in the 80s. In the 90s, when I first started coaching, in the 80s, when I first came out of high school, when I was the same age that the 70s, that the kids that are in high school now, and their understanding, and the world's different. This phone that I'm talking into should be used, should continue to be used to bring the world together, not divide. And so part of this opportunity to teach kids that they're part of this world, not just this little town of Maple Valley, so that when they walk across the stage, and you know, sometimes when I'm disciplining a candidate, you know, if you did that, you said that, if I said that in my job, I'd be fired. That's why I got to send you home, to understand that you can't do that. And I'm not doing it because I'm mad at you. I'm doing it because that behavior has to change. And if I let you get away with doing that, then I'm doing you a disservice 10 years down the road. Because when you do get fired, that's going to be on me. Then I didn't help you understand that that's not, you can't do that, can't act that way, can't behave that way, can't have those kind of attitudes. So the hope that I feel and experience almost on a daily basis with the young people that I get to work with, the unintended avenue, just as an example that I described, you know, a month ago when we had the seniors on a Zoom call, and be able to talk to them about, this is how this world has been feeling for me, and then have our other coaches chime in and have them hear it from different voices, and the struggle that our coach, who's a state patrolman, has. Someone had one of our coaches on, Ian Furness. His son is going to be a senior for us, and he had one of our coaches on, Nolan Washington, who's one of the coaches over at Kennedy, who's a Seattle Police Department. And just that there's not one thing about this that's going to be easy. We're going to struggle through it, but we're going to struggle through it together if we go back to those things that we talked about. If we understand the importance of listening, and we understand having grace, and we have that empathy, and we'll get through it. So I'll step off my soapbox there. How's that? Hey,
it's awesome, Tony. I really, really appreciate your time and your passion and your honesty. And if there's things that you have as resources, whether it's little video clips or quotes or anything that you want to send me, I will include that in the description on the YouTube page. Hey, it's been an absolute honor. So thank you very much.
Well, I just want to really quickly thank you for taking this on.
Yeah.
And again, it's an example of we have to do things differently. And you're doing it in this manner, and I think that's powerful. And the more people that get to hear these stories that you're going to be able to pull together and share, it's going to keep us moving in the right direction that we've been talking about for the last hour.
Right.
Well, probably 45 minutes. Took us 15 minutes to figure out how to.
Exactly. Hey, and the last word of grace, such a powerful word and image. Grace is something that's a gift to be given that we don't deserve, right? And if you think of the song Amazing Grace, that saved a wretch like me, there's humility in that. So if we can listen and not think we have all the answers, but just listen, great word. So thank you.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but when the young man went into the church in South Carolina and killed the people, they were at a prayer meeting.
9 people.
And again, not being political, but I believe that the character and the honor that Barack Obama brought to the presidency, but that speech, and he starts singing Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I don't know if you remember this, but at least 3 of the families of the people that were killed forgave that kid. I can't even imagine that, Dan.
Yeah.
And so if they can do it, how can we not have grace when somebody does this or does that, and then use it as a learning opportunity instead of as another opportunity to be pissed off about something?
Yeah.
There's lessons everywhere. We just have to find them and then be committed to getting better at things. So with that, that's a good one to finish on. Amazing
Awesome.
Grace.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, I'm going to